Welcome back, guys. This is my race recap edition. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on whatever service you provide or prefer, welcome. I'm glad to have you. I know I say I'm going to be more consistent, but man, last few weeks have been very, very tough because I was going into a race and then having to, you know, get ready for that and just kind of do everything necessary. I just figured out something. Okay. Um, so it's been a couple weeks since Ironman Arizona. And um, I drove out there to compete in it. Lots of races this year that didn't quite go as planned. But let me just start off by saying to everyone right here, right now, that I understand it's not considered a legit finish, right? I get that. Ironman, you have 17 hours to finish your race. They normally start at 7 in the morning. You have till midnight. 17 hours, no fans or buts. For some reason, this race, they gave you 16 hours and 40 minutes, which that's 20 minutes less than normal. And that should be okay, right? So I know my time, everything was over, but I still did the 140 miles, 0.6 on my own, no assistance. And so I'm more proud of that. Um, but I understand as far as the books go, it doesn't count. And that's okay. Like I'm still super happy with it. I'm like not dejected. Um, so anyway, but I've been to this race so many times. I've attempted it myself many years ago, and then I've taken athletes, so many athletes there that I coached. It's just a very easy venue to figure out, to spectate, to coach, to race. It's just one of my favorite, and there's just something magical about the desert. Okay, the weather was going to be perfect, and it's just one of those things. I was very excited. It's about a 15-hour drive. I think I've flown out there one time, and I've driven out there probably four or five. So the drive is fairly easy. If nothing, it's boring. And normally what we do is, we leave here, we drive about 10 hours, which puts us around Las Cruces, New Mexico, stay the night. And then that gives about 6 hours the next day to go on in. We had a little traffic, but that was about it. And did that, stayed in Las Cruces, stayed at a hotel, and then at the got to the sorry, I have some notes here because I actually did write this stuff down so I didn't miss anything. But the goal was to get in. Packet pickup, I think, started. I want to say it started around 2. It was a weird time, but it packet pickup started. Goal was to get into Tempe around 2 o'clock, get my packet, go check in the hotel. Check in wasn't until 3. That's right. So I want to get there, get my packet, then go check in, then go to the store if we need to, that kind of stuff. And we were probably off schedule just a little bit. And I've also learned, you don't go these races by yourself. You got to have someone else there to either help you scoop you back up off the pavement, put you in a car, whatever, right? And so I did take my friend with me, and we shared the driving, which made it easy, packing, things like that. Um, Now my favorite hotel when I'm racing, or whenever I need the room, is the Home 2 Suites, right? I love those. Small kitchen, big area. And then the thing is, when you're going for a race like this, you always want to try to get the handicap accessible room because it's got more room. And so you can put your bike, you can put all your gear in certain areas. Coming back, you don't need that room, but you got to have all that room to just spread your stuff out and get ready. Um, Now, like I said, I attempted this race years before. So 2008, I attempted this race, and I got sick. Like it was just I've gotten sick so many times that I've kind of now narrowed that down to what that is. But I got sick, and about mile 80, about 6 miles into that last loop, I just couldn't move anymore, and I got brought back in and taken to medical. So that was my last chance to race that race. I've attempted many others, but it's one of those things I knew, like I said, what caused this. And so I had hoped to, figure that out, but got to the hotel and got checked in, had dinner, and then I took a sleep gummy, which was amazing. It's got the CBN, the CBD, the melatonin, like it's got all that stuff in there that really helps you stay asleep through the night. And I want to say I slept like 9 or 10 hours Thursday night. Now, with a race like this, the race is Sunday. The most important night of sleep is not Saturday night. It's actually Friday or even Thursday. And so you want to do what it takes to do that. So Friday, I had no intention of getting up early or any certain time. All I really had to do was kind of start getting my stuff organized. All my stuff was there. I packed when you're able to throw it in your car and go. And so that's what I did is I just kind of overpacked. So I had all of my stuff and just kind of made sure everything was working. I did change both of my tires and tubes on Friday. I rode it Saturday morning to make sure everything was working, charge my batteries because I've got electronic shifting, just kind of got all those little things dialed in and, check to make sure nothing was loose or going to be a problem. Got my stickers on my bike, just got everything ready. And then we headed over. I think we had lunch, headed over to a meeting. And the biggest thing in the meeting is I wanted to make sure I was going to be able to wear my neoprene booties on my feet. The water's always cold ish. And that was my only thing is make sure it was going to be cold enough. And the water was just right around 60 degrees consistently. And so I knew it was probably going to be legal. They made the announcement it was going to be legal. They kind of went through how the race would go, which it made sense to me. It's a super easy venue. And I was just very calm about everything. I don't really, if I get nervous about a race, I get nervous like those moments right before the swim start. Like that's the only time I will worry. The day before, I don't worry about it. I've done all my stuff. Um, so that's kind of how, and Friday had a great vegan dinner. Like it's just everything was just lining up perfectly and I could just feel the energy. My vibe was good. The energy is good. Like everything was just flowing in a very perfect harmonious way. Um and then, Saturday I did try to sleep in. I got good sleep again and I just wanted to ride my bike, make sure everything was working properly before I put it in my car and tore out. And then Saturday you drop everything off. You drop off your bike, you drop off your bags, your bike bag, your run bag. Those things you drop off on Saturday. And then your special, I don't know what we call them. We used to call them special needs, but it's not called that now. Special items. I don't know. Anyway, those two bags are your halfway point bags of the run and the bike, and they can be anything you want. You drop those off race morning. Those help replenish the items you've used or might want to need. Um, and so once you drop all that stuff off, it's now pretty much a done deal. I think we went and picked up food, took it back to the hotel. It's kind of a blur because everything was just very uneventful. Um, and I just laid around, I just laid around and tried to relax and feel as good as I could physically. I'd had some issues with like a lat. My left lat was bothering me quite a bit for a few months before, but it seemed to really kind of loosen up. And Friday when I was at the expo, there was like a one of the sponsored doctor's offices. He was a sports guy, sports carbo guy, but he worked on my lat one more time and it was seemed to really push it over the edge. Got some incredible CBD roll-on stuff that help really loosen up and make things pain-free. And that was about it on my Saturday, and it was just an easy day, and I'd started going over this race in my head, and so here was my plan, and my plan was, if so the race starts at 6:50 for the age groupers. You're getting in line, but I wanted to be as close as I could towards the front of that, just to give myself a little bit more time. And if I'm up there with the fastest swimmers, they're going to swim away and leave me. But if I'm in the back with the slower people, well, then I'm now having to fight through people who don't swim as well as me. So many people mess up with that. And so I was up there pretty fun. It was 6:50-ish. I was going to be in line and get in water as quick as possible. So transition opened at 5. So I had to check on my bike, drop off my stuff, And so my plan was, get up early Sunday and then just make sure everything gets to where it's supposed to go. But that's all I really needed to do, was show up with my stuff I needed and kind of go from there. And so Sunday, make sure I look at my notes here, because I don't want to miss a thing. So here is what I did. So Sunday, I got up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and transition opened at 5. My goal is to be parked in the parking garage at 5, so that then I still had time to sit there, remove all that nervous traffic energy, and got up at 2 o'clock. I meditated, had my coffee, made my poopies. Like, these things are all very, very, very important. Poopies being the most important. But during my meditation that morning, the focus on the meditation was gratitude. And I thought, it just really sunk in kind of at the right moment, the right spot. And I was like, whoa, that's perfect. That's a perfect way to look at this day. And then Saturday, my coach Jen had left me a voice message. And it was like, there's only one way to eat an elephant. That's one bite at a time. So it's easy to, when you're in a swim and things are rough, to think about, oh my God, the bike or the run, how am I going to make it, blah, blah, blah. Whereas you just have to think about right now, and then just what's right in front of you. And that is really the only attitude someone should have in a race like this. And so I took that information, I just put it back here. I'm going to use that as I need to in the back of my mind, pull it out as I need to. So I got a bit, like I said, I got up at 2 o'clock in the morning, took care of all my stuff, had plenty of time, because we're going to leave about 4:30-ish to drive over. So I had my breakfast around 4, or as late as I possibly could, because I'm not going to be starting till around 7. So I need to not be more than 3 hours, but kind of be right in that perfect window. And my breakfast just about every day is an organic sweet potato, rice, a little bit of spinach, sometimes vegan meatballs. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of just my go-to breakfast on a regular basis. I have it when I'm not racing, not training. Like, I just love that as my breakfast. It's very easy on my system, and I need that, And so I had that. I think it's hard to remember. And we get there, and there's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of closed roads that are closed really early. We had a little bit of traffic. Probably was parked, my guess was about 5:15. So I'm only a few minutes behind schedule. Still plenty of time to do everything I got to do. Transition closes about 6:30. So, so you just want to make sure you're done with all that stuff at that time. Excuse me. And so, I'm parked. I'm settled. It's good. And was able to park in the same area of the parking garage I've been parking the last couple of days. So this is all very simple. Got my 2 bags. I'm bundled up, and it's just, the air is right about 48, not quite 50 yet. It's chilly air. And, in the desert like that, When it gets cold, it's cold. When the sun comes up, it warms up. It's just kind of this perfect ebb and flow of the weather, unlike here where it gets very, very, very hot and very, very, very no comfortable in between, you know. And so now for my swim, like I've bought more wetsuits this year than I've bought my whole 20 something year career as a triathlete, right? So I've really been focused on dialing everything in that I was going to need perfectly. Um, so I had brand new Magic 5 goggles, which I saw an ad, I think on Facebook or something. I got them. I got the indoor and the outdoor. The indoor were amazing. The outdoor, I tried them one time in the pool and they were just as good. So I hadn't really tried them outside. So I had these new goggles that were just amazing. I normally use earplugs in my ears, especially when the water's cold or the air is cold, because if you got water in your ears and you hit that cold air on the bike, it can give you this crazy headache or make you feel dizzy or all kinds of weird things. My wetsuit was a brand new wetsuit. I swam in it just for a tiny bit during a pool swim, and it was the best of their wetsuit. It's a Roca. It was amazing. It was very warm. But this friend of mine, he said, well, don't wear a shirt underneath. It's too much stuff. Like you don't need to wear like a rash guard or anything. I was like, wow, I never really thought of that. I'm doing a complete change after the swim. I'm putting on dry clothes, so I'm not wearing wet clothes, freezing. And so I was like, yeah, why am I wearing a shirt? So I swam without a shirt, and I've never done that before, and it worked perfectly. These goggles did not leak, did not fog up, and they were very comfortable. The only thing I was not fully aware of was how it makes people's skin look. Like it looked green when I would see people. Um, but I got in the water about 7:05 is when I started, and everything seemed fine. And I got in, I started swimming, it felt good. And then something hit me, and it was like, holy shit, this water is cold. Now, seconds before stepping in, I thought to myself, they said that water temperature is 60 degrees. The air is not quite 50. There's a big 10-degree, more than 10-degree difference. Why is there not fog or steam coming off the water? Because I've been to plenty of races where it was colder air, warmer water, and there's a layer of fog that comes up from the water. And I thought, what? That's weird. There's not that here. So we either something different's going on science wise, or there's actually a closer degree of temperature between. And that water was cold. That water, in my opinion, was not 60. It was cold. Um, so I swam, and as soon as I felt good, but my face all of a sudden just hurt. My hands hurt. I stopped at the very first kayak, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is so cold!" And all I could do was just try to focus and just move a little bit. But I was like, "This is unbelievable." And then I would just try to go again, and there'd be another kayak. Like I just could not get a rhythm. It wasn't taking my breath away because I was able to kind of have control of that. It's just my face physically hurt from the cold, and my hands hurt so bad. Um, so I just had to kind of do that limp around, limp around. I was over a mile before I kind of felt like I was in more of a rhythm and could actually swim further and more. But you're forced to breaststroke a little bit just because it was cold. Um, and then towards like the middle to the last part, it got really rough and wavy, but that didn't seem to bother me so much as the cold. I could feel the waves lifting me up, lifting me down, and I could kind of ride it and paddle down, take a breath at the top. You know what I mean? I could time the waves enough. And after I kind of watched the pros race on YouTube a couple days later, I realized, that they're filming the pros as they're swimming, and those boats that are driving are causing a lot of waves, and there's concrete sides, so it's not being absorbed, that wave's coming back. And then the wind, especially when the sun popped up, it made it really choppy, so a lot of people struggled So then as you get closer to the end, there's so many more people being extracted from the water or rescued that now there's even more boats and jet skis moving around that the water's rough. I mean, it got rough, rough, rough. But again, that didn't bother me. The cold bothered me. And so then finally, as I'm, kind of rounding my corner to come out, and I know I'm way behind my scheduled pace that I could have done this in. I know because I've seen my numbers in training, things like that. 1:30 should have been around my where I was, and I think I was closer to 2 hours. I'd have to look to make sure. But it's just one of those things. You're just so happy to be out of that water, and I noticed that when I was swimming, it felt like I was hitting someone's leg with my hand as I'd reach out my left hand. I felt like I was hitting someone's leg, and I would stop and look around because I don't want to like run into anybody. And I realized there's no one around, that my fingers were just, I couldn't control them. They were kind of flapping in the water, and I could not even close my fingers together. Like my hands were froze. I'm normally pretty cold natured anyways. So to throw in that extra mix, um, just being that cold that long, being in the water for over an hour, that cold water, I know I was slipping into hypothermia. And there's really just nothing you can do but keep moving. And then when I got, kind of got out, and like I said, my meditation that morning was about gratitude, right? So immediately, as things felt like they were going to get uncomfortable or be ugly, I just would tell myself, I'm just so grateful to be right here, right now. Like there was a guy back there behind me who had no sleeves on his wetsuit. He was struggling from the start. He's probably not still here. I'm grateful that I'm still here and I'm still able to do this. I know so many people who have passed away. I know so many people who physically couldn't be there or do it. And I was so glad that I was, right? So by going back into that gratitude well, and just it was full, you know what I mean? I could just pull. I get emotional. Ah, but it was one of those things. It was cold, but it wasn't like I felt like I was gonna die. I could rise above it mentally. Um anyway, but I would try to just focus on like 5-10 minutes at a time. And then I knew, like I know being in that water that long and then coming out, it's hard to move my lower extremities. I'm wearing booties on my feet. Like my legs actually weren't that cold. And so I was, as I'm coming up, I'm starting now think of the next couple of minutes ahead, not 10 miles down the road. And I started thinking, all right, I think I might leave my wetsuit on to be warmer till I get over to transition. It's about a half a mile walk or run to the transition, the changing tent. And I was like, I'm just gonna leave it on because it's cold. I'm cold. I don't have a shirt on. And I get up there to where the wetsuit peelers are, and they're all excited. And I haven't fully committed that they're going to take off my wetsuit. Someone says my name, like cheer me on. He's there helping one of the peelers. I don't know who it was because I could not see without my glasses on. He's a blur, right? I wasn't sure who he was. I think Hispanic. I'm not sure. I had earplugs in. I'm trying to take stuff out. Anyway, they started peeling me and I just let them do it. So now I'm carrying my wetsuit and now I'm cold because the air is very cold. The air is colder than whatever the water was, but it's cold. So I try to run. Feet are numb now because the ground is so cold. Anyway, I get my bag and then so the changing tent is called Naked City, right? And it's called Naked City because you're allowed to get fully naked in there, take off your wet clothes, put on dry clothes. Like you can fully do a wardrobe change completely. And this was a good sized tent. And I remember they said warm changing tent. It was just a tent. There wasn't anything warm about it. But I remember looking around that tent, and it's been a while since I've been to a changing tent, and it was still full of people and people still coming in. So I wasn't in the very back of the swim pack like I've been in the past. And so I felt good about that. And these people, I'm looking at their faces and they look like they're ready to quit. I mean, it was ugly. And I said it loud enough so the whole room could hear me, but I leaned over this one guy and I said, "Is this the women's tent or was the water that cold?" And everybody laughed, and yeah, it was cold. And so I have my bag. So you have your bag that you pre-pack. It's my bike shorts, my shirts, my jacket, everything I need to stay warm on the bike, and new gloves, everything's good, right? And I get my bag and it had come apart that morning, I think, or that day before it come apart. So I put a piece of tape around it to make sure it stays closed. I could not get my fingers to grab that tape. And so it was like, this is just gotten more difficult than it needed to be. And I can't just rip it open because all my wetsuit and swim stuff have to go back in that bag and then it gets taken to my bike. So I had to delicately try to rip a small hole just to get stuff out and get stuff in and then be able to close it kind of. And so that's what I did. And I just kind of took my time. I was in there. It says my transition time was like 20 minutes, but part of that was that half-mile walk. So that's at least, 5 minutes moving, if not more. Um, but then and that's counting getting out to the mountain line. So I was probably not in the tent more than 15 minutes would be my guess, but it was long enough that just getting dry clothes on, being able to dry off and be bundled up. I had an undershirt on and then a bike jersey, arm warmers, I had toe covers on my shoes, nice full-fingered gloves, and then a vest over my jersey. And then I had, I always have like a do-rag on my head and then my helmet just because I don't want to get sunburned through my helmet. But I didn't even put on sunscreen. Really, the only exposed part of my body going out was my face and my calves, like below like from my knees to my shoes. That was the only exposed skin. Um, but I didn't feel cold going out. I mean, adrenaline is up and that'll warm you up. But I didn't really feel cold. And I get changed, I get headed out. Um, and you're just glad to be out of that water and be out of the tent and be on the bike moving. And there were a lot of bikes left in transition. I mean, this race had close to 3,000 people in it. And so it was a big race. A lot of people had, still either changing or still in the water because they could have started way behind me and then had the same issues. So you have 2 hours and 20 minutes to finish the swim, but then you don't have very much time in transition. You got to be out pretty quick. I want to say it's like 10 minutes or so that you got to be out. But, so some people probably didn't make that cutoff. But and so once I got on the bike, I've got all kinds of my food, which I've gone to a new nutrition system. I started using precision fuel and precision hydration. So I had 2 bottles behind my seat that had water and the hydration tabs, which is sodium, 500 milligrams of sodium each bottle. I've got a bottle in my frame down below that it was also water and 1 tablet in there. So I had 1,500 milligrams of sodium with me on my bike. And technically that should have been plenty because it wasn't hot. Like the high was going to be 70s. But we started that bike. It was 50-ish. It was, 50s, but the wind was pretty crazy. And I remember like Karen asked if I knew my numbers and things like that, meaning if I knew what number I had to stay below, like with my power meter, I need to stay below a certain number or else I'm going to not be able to run or move after the bike, right? Like it's that kind of, you got to stay in control. And so I was like, I'm just going to do the best I can without overdoing it. And when I got out to the main highway, I mean, it felt windy. And I thought, this is really windy. And I had to dial it back. Like I didn't realize it was that windy. It wasn't that windy in town when we got our bikes. So that was a good shift, but it was just more work, you just got to work. But so because of my issues in the past, I've always had these weird stomach things that come up. And so what I did, and I tried it a couple times before and it seemed to work. So with this race, and I know I can take like 1 dose every 4 hours. So once I got on the bike, as soon as I kind of got everything situated and going forward, I kind of just reached in my little food bin and I take out some gas X, take the gas X. And I normally, you know, I've got my nutrition dialed in to where I'm going to take in 310 calories every hour. Okay. So once I get on the bike, I have another. So I've got my Garmin that I wear on my arm that measures everything I'm doing. But then I've got another extra watch on my bike that is set up already on timer intervals. And the timers on the Timex can be set to where it'll count down and then it beeps and restarts itself. So because it wasn't hot, I had this watch set up for every 20 minutes, it would go off, restart, go again. So 20 minutes times 3 is 1 hour. So when I started, I hit start on my watch. So when that watch beeped, I was going to take my first dose of my gel, my fuel product, and I was just going to take a swig of that every 20 minutes, meaning the third one, that gel pack needed to be gone. The gel pack was 310 calories. So I had 3 of those for the first 3 hours of the bike. In my special needs bag, I had more of those to get me the last part of the bike. Okay. Um, and so then I had, and I always carry like a little baggie, it'll have chapstick, it'll have mints, it'll have a leaf, just you name it, all kinds of, random things I might need at some point in the race. And I used to have that in my pocket. But anyway, I started off in the race, my timer's going, and the first water stop's very quick. And I normally would drink the bottles I have, throw them, take a new bottle from them. But the pavement seemed to be so rough. And I thought, I don't feel good about trusting their bottle will stay in. And it's too early in the day. Like I haven't gone 5 miles yet. And so what I did was I needed water because I just went 2 hours with no water. I basically took a bottle on hand up and I just started slamming it while I'm riding. And I got in close to 20 ounces in just a matter of seconds, threw the bottle down at the end of the station and kept going. I was like, okay, this might work because I've got my other bottles I can drink if I'm thirsty. Take a bottle every 10 miles, maybe 2, and pound that water, chasing my electrolyte, got gels. Like that should work for me. I was able to do that most of the race, like without stopping. And I think it saved me a ton of time, but also didn't lose any bottles. So I came back with the exact same bottles I left with, which is rare in races like that. So I was super excited that the plan I had put together was actually working. Um, and it was just, you just kind of have to get through it and work it. That wind was pretty brutal. I think it took a lot of people by surprise. And I did notice like the roads that going out, we had a headwind and rough road. So I noticed my glasses were vibrating down. I noticed at some point my bars were like making a noise. They were actually getting loose. And then my seat was moving a little bit. So I had things vibrating loose. Kind of all at once. And so what I did do once I got through my, once I got to the special needs, you take that bag, you take the stuff you want out of the bag, and you give the empty back or give your stuff back, whatever you don't want. You don't get that stuff anymore. I replenished all my food, replenished my other little goodie bag, and I kind of topped off what I could. They're not really an aid station, but there was the next water stop I did stop, got water in my other bottles, but there was a mechanic there and he was able to tighten up my bike. We just kind of guessed on my seat height, but I think that it definitely shifted a little bit and it wasn't really marked. So I wasn't sure where to go back to. And that would be something that would haunt me much later on. But as the day got on, the wind should be lessening and lessening. And it's a 3-loop bike. So you got 37 miles, basically 18 miles out and back, right? That is your bike course, and 18 point something. But once you got to the turn and started heading back, you were able to go over 20 miles an hour. Like it was a fast, kind of a downish hill. This course has a lot of deceptive flats, which mean they're really inclines or hills, and it's 2,000 feet elevation change, that you're going up. Um, and so that's kind of a surprise. When you look at it, it looks flat, but as the wind got better, the race just got faster and faster. And I noticed this is how I knew the wind was better, because if there's no wind and you're doing 15 miles an hour, you have a 15 headwind, right? So you want a little bit of a wind to kind of push you, but if you're going faster than the wind, you're always going to feel it. So I was ready to feel it, but I wasn't ready to feel it and then work extra hard. But I noticed either the first, second, maybe every loop that I saw there were different areas, two big, they're like whitish gray wolves, dead, laying in the center median. They'd been hit by a car. And my first thought was, wow, that had to happen this morning. And I thought, those are big wolves. Like, they're not little. I was like, it had to happen this morning because I don't smell. Then that third loop, I started to smell it. And I was like, oh, the wind is now dissipated enough that it's not getting rid of the smell. Like, the smell is here. We're riding through it now. And so as the wind lessened, I was like, okay, that's smelling them is a good thing, because now I can go a little bit faster without burning up. And so I did. I just kept cranking it up. That third loop, going out, Karen yelled something to me, and I didn't understand. She said, "You can't stop, or you got to go faster." I didn't know what she meant, but anytime someone says something other than "good job," you kind of go into panic mode, thinking, "Oh shit, am I behind schedule?" Like, it's too hard to flip through your watch and figure out the time. I mean, you're constantly doing math, but I just felt good, the whole time, other than the wind and the bike adjustments. But it was one of those things. Um, I just felt good the whole day, and that was the thing. I was never gonna go to a mental dark place like I've done in the past. But as you're coming on the bike, you start thinking, okay, what's next? What's next? How do I do this? How do I get from this to this as fast as I can? Because I've already wasted too much time. And my nutrition ran out with exactly 5 miles to go. So it was perfect. Like, I had everything dialed in perfectly. And the thing is, even if you get off your bike and stop for a little bit, my nutrition clock is still going. So I have to go by that, not go by my time that I'm moving. And so I stayed on top of it. That worked perfectly. Hydration worked perfectly. Like, it just was dialed in perfect. And I couldn't be happier that all that came together. And it was one of those things that last stretch, we had 3 or 4 miles to go, and there's fencing over here protecting us from the riders on the other side. There's cones and stuff protecting us from the cars. And in front of me, up ahead, are three people, and they're kind of in a group. They're what I would consider too tight. But at this point in the race, they don't care about drafting. Like, none of us are in the position to win anything or gain advantage, right, from a draft, because it is illegal. And this girl directly in front of me hits a sign with either her face or shoulder, and she goes down. Well, the guy and the other girl that were kind of behind her ish, this guy swerves over and he hits the fence far over to the left. He's down. The girl behind him hits him. She's down. They're all on the ground writhing, and the girl that hit the signs screaming. Other girl says, "Are you okay?" She says, "No." So she's hurt. There's nothing I can do. And I hear all these people running over to help them. So I just keep going. And I'm like, all right, got to be careful, because you're tired physically, mentally, and this is where stupid things can happen. I mean, those three people, one of them I know didn't get back up and finish. I don't know about the other two. Like, I don't know at what point if they did. And it's just one of those things. There's nothing you can do. It'll only hurt me by stopping and trying to render aid. But I come in, and it's like, as you get closer, you hear the crowd, you hear the noise, adrenaline, is back up again. You're excited again to be around civilization. And it's just there's just so many surreal moments with the sport when you're in that position of testing yourself to see what you're really made of. And this was that day, you know. And as I got in, I knew I made that cutoff. Like the other cutoffs, I weren't sure what they were, other than I needed to be at like the 13-mile mark at like 9:30 or 9 o'clock. Or yeah, I had these other little marks I had to make, but I made the bike cutoff, you know. So I was very happy about that. Get my bag. They take your bike. I'm so happy to have someone take this bike away from me. It was a great friend of mine for several hours, and now is ready to part ways, you know. But get my run bag, go into the tent, and the tent's just as full, but these people are even more beat down than the first group that was in there. And these people don't look like they're continuing on. Like they look like they are just beat to shit. Meanwhile, I'm bebopping, I'm changing, I do a full wardrobe change again. I put on running shorts, I put on a run shirt, a hat. Like I am like just glad to start this. And I get everything situated, get my food where it needs to be. And now for the run, it is more go by feel. I know I'm not going to run very fast for very long, and I'm going to do what I can initially and then get through the rest as I need to, play games with myself, whatever. But my only plan was to try to take in about 200 calories per hour. Um, but if I miss that, that's okay, because my body's just using whatever's still in there, or I'm going to burn muscle as fuel. Like, you know, I understand this part of it, but I also understand I can just take a little bit of dose of something and be right back up where I was as far as food goes, you know? And so I'm starting off, I'm situated, I'm running, like I'm not feeling bad. I'm not cold. I'm feeling just fine. And I'm just like, all right, let's just get to this 1 mile, you know, like forget about 26 miles. I have 26 1 mile runs to do. That's it. And you know, it's like you just become so grateful of everything, of every volunteer, of the whole experience. But then in the past, I would let my ego get to me, and I would worry about what people thought of me as far as watching my results online, and you know, they're judging me, and you know what I mean? I was so worried about what people thought of me that way. And now I've kind of come to this conclusion in my life where I'm like, well, it's none of my business what people think about me. But I now started to think about all these people that were tracking me, trying to stay up with me, on different time changes. It was just like inspiring, you know? It's easy to go out there and suffer. It's hard for people to go to a race in Sherpa with you. It's hard for people to sit at home and watch me for 17 hours. That is the hard part. And I think that really helped inspire me the most. But I got changed, and I mean, I was out of there in like 8 minutes, and I was focused. I was focused on moving forward. And as long as I made those other two cutoffs, you know what I mean? That this was going to be a great day. It was already a great day in spite of the cold swim. But I yeah, I just started moving, and then all of a sudden I needed to walk, and I would just pick moments. And I remember there were one of the first water stops or aid stations, you know, they would have food like cups of pretzels, cups of chips. And it's like chips. I need chips. You know what I mean? Like there's things you just need. And at some point, if you're not, you know, the saying is if you're not buying what they're selling, you're going to be in trouble. Right. And so I was just drinking water, maybe Gatorade. You know what I mean? I was kind of switching it up. And it was working, you know, like I was just kind of working it. And then I think I noticed about mile 5 or 6 that my watch was getting really low. It was getting dangerously low. And you know, it's a two loop run. So you got to go out and you come back the same area you started and then go back out again. And you know, I needed nothing. I felt good. And in my special needs for the run, I just had some more gels and food stuff. I had another little baggie with like eye drops, a leave, all that stuff I had in the other ones. That was there for me. Chapstick, which I use more chapstick on the run than anything. I use it on the bike too, but um it was also, I had a long sleeve shirt that I could take out of that bag and put it on. The first part of the run didn't feel cold at all. Like it almost felt nice and warm. I think I started to sweat a little bit, but I mean, I don't even sweat very much. Like I stay pretty cool. But I put that shirt on. It was very nice to have a warm shirt on. But I was having to, at that point pick moments that I was going to run. And remember when I said my seat had dropped a little bit? Well, I was having this weird pain from my hamstring, my left leg, and it was just getting tighter and tighter and tighter. Hindsight, I could have probably sat down and tried to stretch it, maybe, but it's also like you don't want to get down and can't get back up because that's always a danger. But I um I was playing games where I would walk one space of a light pole. So I tell myself, walk one, run three. So I'd walk to the second light pole, then run to the fourth. Walk one, run three. And I was doing that. I was doing that consistently, and that was seemed to be okay, keeping me on track. And then it was like there wouldn't be one, like no more light poles. I'm like, all right, I got to pick something else. So I mean, you're always playing games. It's dark, so you're in an area you don't really know what's over there because it's dark. And so you just kind of have to stay within your head and play games of just moving forward. And things my legs were hurting, my neck was tight, but it was nothing that was to me that bad. And so I get back to, especially needs, get my stuff. And Karen meets me there, and she's going to, I think she was gonna, I don't know how we decided this, but I needed her watch because mine was about to go dead. I give her my watch, she gives me her watch. I just need to know the time. I need to know the time to make sure I'm gonna make a cutoff. I'm doing everything I can, but I guess I want to be prepared for that moment if they decide I'm done. And so I get her watch and I put it on, and I'm standing there, and my heart drops to like 37 or something, and 39, I don't know. And so I realized, looking back, well, I'm not even going to say that, but I was going to go out 1 mile, come back a mile, that's two. Then she was going to go walk the 11 with me, or run. My run was not really a run at this point. And I realized that when I decided I was going to run a little bit, and she's still walking the same pace as my walk pace, as my run pace, I'm like, well, it hurts. And if I'm going to try to run at the end, I need to save something because I don't have much now. And so I was pretty much just forced to walking as fast as I could. And you can do that, when you absolutely have to, but it was getting close to the wire. And, all you can use is the tracker to guesstimate when you're going to finish because it's a guessing game. And there were parts of that second loop of that run where I was a little disoriented, that I thought I was someplace and I wasn't. And had she not been there, I might have gotten really confused and lost because my brain was starting to kind of go away, and it was getting cooler and cooler. But I also noticed if I stopped to go to the bathroom or something, when I stopped just for a couple seconds standing still, I was starting to get lightheaded. And I'm like, okay, all the blood's going to my legs. I got to keep moving. And I think it was more than that. I think it was actually, I was going hypothermic again. Like it was just almost too cold for me. And so, and I think especially coming off being that cold in the morning, it takes a while for your body to kind of re-regulate back up. Um, but that run was dark and desolate. There's still a ton of people behind me. But it was like, that's when you really get to experience kind of what you're made of, like there's so many people that in those moments just sit down and cry, or they quit, or they just don't keep going forward. And, it's like, I didn't realize it, but it was like that next day on Monday was when I'd had back surgery because I'd broke my back 10 years before. I'd had back surgery that Monday. So that Monday, I was recovering from back surgery, recovering from an Ironman, 8 years apart, but I probably still felt just as uncomfortable, you know, probably moving just as well for either. Um, but yeah, then we get to the finish line, and I know I'm over time. I know it doesn't count, and I don't care. And I said, someone they're putting things away, and the chute's still kind of up, and it goes to the finish line, and I asked them, I was like, you want me to go through or just go to my car? They're like, no, go through. So I went through, and it was like just as I was about to step over, just I stepped over the timing mat, they pulled the mat. So it was like things were being shut down and unplugged as I did it. Like they're waiting for me to turn the lights off. And so that was also a very, very cool experience knowing that everyone's gone. And this is not about everyone. This is about me and my journey. I to me, that felt better than having thousands of people there cheer me in. Um, because everybody I needed with me were in me, like my friends that have passed, my parents, like everything was within me to keep moving forward. And it's just such a great journey back. But they gave him a hat, a shirt, finisher's medal. And I said, "Are you sure?" And they said, "Yeah, take it." I mean, I did the distance. Um, I've never worked harder or felt like I deserved a shirt, a hat, or a medal more. And I think that's where, like, I'm just so satisfied with the whole race, with everything that went into it, with everything that developed throughout. Like, it was just perfect. Um, and when we got back to the car, I mean, I'm very out of it. If I stop, I just start shivering and I can't stop. But I started to get lightheaded there by the car. I was like, I got to sit down. Like I'm gonna pass out. And then when we got back to the hotel, I'm okay in the car. And when I got back to the hotel, as soon as I got outside, trying to get everything out, I got lightheaded and I was passed out in the parking lot. Like I just had to lay down and just close my eyes for a second. And so I know that was hypothermia kind of shutting me down. Um, and then it was probably a good next day before I was really warm again. And then I did pass out again in the shower once I got up there. And it was just like, I can only just lay here in the bottom of the shower. But as I'm going down, my thought is, I'm going to take this bar of soap, lay it on the bottom of just throw in the bottom of the shower. And I'm just going to lay on top of the soap. And hopefully when I wake up, it'll be here and I can just take a shower laying in the bottom of a shower. But I wasn't, I like whenever you're, and at that point I'd been up 24 hours, so being up, being solid food deprived, all you want to do is eat, lay down, not move. I mean, I slept in full on long sleeve pants and shirt. Like I was so cold all night. And it took me a couple of days to bounce back from that, but I did. And then it was the next day is all about just packing up, getting out of there within a decent time. We get a late checkout, but then it's just trying to get out of there in a decent position. And I really thought I'd be able to drive a little bit or help drive, but my leg hurt so bad. My neck was, kind of cramping up. Like I was sore. I was a little beat up. And the hardest part is sitting there driving, holding that wheel for so long can just make everything worse. And so it was like we just went from, and coming back, I was like, we're gonna drive 4 or 5 hours to Las Cruces. El Paso's like 6. Like why are we not staying in El Paso? You know, like it kind of makes no sense. Years ago, someone I rode with said, "Oh, it's too dangerous to stay in El Paso. We go to Las Cruces." I'm like, yeah, but I don't think it is dangerous in El Paso anymore. In the last 20 years, it probably hasn't been. And come to find out that El Paso has like the lowest murder rate in the whole country, the state. Like it's crazy. So anyway, we stayed in El Paso coming back, which was better because then the next day we only had 8 hours. But it was even very hard for me to drive. So I wasn't able to drive at all coming back. Karen got to drive the whole way. First day was horrible because she sang the whole time. I digress. But yeah, I mean, found these incredible herbal stuff that you drink this and it makes you kind of like taking a Xanax, and it has CBD in it so you can be pain free. And it was kind of amazing because I was actually able to be semi comfortable sitting in a vehicle for a few hours. Of course, you get up, you've gotten stiffer again, but I was more concerned at that point of just making sure I wore compression gear because I don't want blood clots. I know so many people that have gotten blood clots from doing a race and jumping in a car for several hours. So I was more concerned about that. But it was just like, I couldn't believe that my results still showed a finisher, official finisher, but I was over time. And then I was like, oh, the next day they'll catch it, they'll revoke it, whatever. And it's still showing as standing. So it's kind of a weird fluke that it even still exists, but I'm also they can make it a DNF at any time. Like I get it. I know I've done it. I mean, so I've got another race in about 4 months. And someone asked me, what am I going to do differently getting ready for this race? I was like, nothing. Like to me, training was perfect for this race. Had the water not been cold and my bike not started to, shift a little bit, I probably would have been just fine. So I'm gonna get a bike fit and I'm just gonna, start training again in next week or so. Next, I guess December, I'll be right back at it. But I think it's one of those things you just can't, I don't know. You can't second guess what you've done. If you've done something wrong, just admit it, let it go. Like to me, it was the perfect race. I mean, I couldn't believe how perfect things went for me. I couldn't believe how I've kind of figured out the perfect formula for me for racing. And I'm like, if I just do, this is where a lot of athletes don't understand. I was talking to my coach today about this, and that with the result I had, so many people want to now do something different because they don't want that again. But they don't understand that if I just took the exact same training program I just did, do it again, then I'm going to actually have a better result because a 2 hour ride is going to be, I'm going to go faster and further because I'm in better shape still. I didn't get injured. You know what I mean? Like I'm mentally still excited to train. Normally after a big race like that, you take off about 2 weeks just to let your body kind of recover and reset. And I've had all kinds of weird aches and pains pop up, and I'm like, it's just part of it. But I'm excited to next week kick it off again. So yeah, I onward and upward, right? And I'm going back to the Woodlands. I'm doing the race that I said I'd never do again. And it's like that the bike course can be windy, but it's also due for a good day, and I'm bringing such incredible energy to every race I go to now that I feel like I have enough of a high vibration that I can change whatever environment the tri gods throw at me. Well, if you made it through this whole thing, I appreciate it. Um, and again, I understand. I mean, I posted a picture Facebook and Instagram, and I did get a couple comments that were I'd be you could be considered negative, but it's one of those things. I don't care. Like I understand I was over the agreed upon time limit, right? But I don't care, you know? So it worked. It worked. I loved it. And I'm looking for better results in the Woodlands. Sure, I just want a great day. And I know a great day is going to show several hours faster. Like, I just know it. I believe in my coach. I believe in the program. I believe in my friends. Like, I just believe in everything in my life that I'm currently at. So there you go, guys. I might put in comments like the link to the fuel I used, because you really can't find it anywhere. I found it on Amazon or from the company directly. It's quite incredible, this stuff. I mean, I found it accidentally, but it's one of those things. It worked for me, and I couldn't believe it. Um, but yeah, if you guys have any recommendations on how to make my watch last the whole race, please let me know. Um, all right, I think that's it. I think I've covered my whole race. That's my first video slash podcast race report. And like I said, if you are on YouTube, please hit subscribe, like, share. And if you're listening, you can share that too, you know? All right, y'all. Don't be afraid to go for big dreams and goals. Life's too short not to. And if I can help you guys in any way, please let me know. Bye.